And we're back.
We're back.
Which brings us to the Old Testament reading, which comes from Job chapter 36. Do you have any idea how powerful God is? Have you ever heard of a teacher like him? Has anyone ever had to tell you what to do or correct him saying, you did that all wrong? Remember then to praise his workmanship, which is often celebrated in song. Everybody sees it. Nobody is too far away to see it. Take a long, hard look. See how great he is. Infinite, greater than anything you could ever imagine or figure out. He pulls water up out of the sea, distills it, and fills up his rain cloud cisterns. And then the skies open up and pour out soaking showers on everyone. Does anyone have the slightest idea how this happens? How he arranges the clouds? How he speaks in thunder? Just look at the lightning, his sky-filled light snow, light show, illumining the dark depths of the sea. These are the symbols of the sovereignty. His generosity, his loving care. He hurls arrows of light, taking sure and accurate aim. The high God roars in the thunder, angry against evil. This too?
Yes, it goes on.
We're in Job 37 now. Job, are you listening? Have you noticed all this? Stop in your tracks. Take in God's miracle wonders. Do you have any idea how God does it all? How he makes bright lightning from dark storms? How he piles up the cumulus clouds? All these miracle wonders of a perfect mind? Why, you don't even know how to keep cool on a sweltering hot day. So how could you ever dream of making a dent in that hot tin roof sky? If you're so smart, give us a lesson in how to address God. We're in the dark and can't figure it out. Do you think I'm dumb enough to challenge God? Wouldn't that just be asking for trouble? No one in his right mind stares straight at the sun on a clear and cloudless day. As God comes from the northern mountains, so a terrible beauty streams from God. Mighty God, far beyond our reach, unsurpassable in power and justice. It's unthinkable that he'd treat anyone unfairly. So bow to him in deep reverence, one and all. If you're wise, you'll most certainly worship him.
Amen.
And then a reading from Psalm 18. For the director of music of David, the servant of the Lord, he sang to the Lord the words of this song when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge. He is my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call to the Lord, who is worthy of praise, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death entangle me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. The earth trembled and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains shook. They trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils. Consuming fire came from his mouth. Burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him, the dark rain clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of his presence, clouds advanced, with hailstorms and bolts of lightning. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the enemies, great bolts of lightning, and routed them. The valley of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of breath from your nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a precious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me.
And our gospel for this Wednesday is from Matthew chapter 8. Then Jesus got in the boat, his disciples with him. The next thing they knew, they were in a severe storm. Waves were crashing into the boat, and he was sound asleep. They roused him, pleading, "Master, save us, we're going down." Jesus reprimanded them. "Why are you such cowards, such faint hearts?" Then he stood up and told the wind to be silent, the sea to quiet down. "Silence!" The sea became smooth as glass. The men rubbed their eyes, astonished. "What's going on here? Wind and sea come to heel at his command?" The word of the Lord.
Praise be to God.
So, we just had the August primary election last Tuesday. Hopefully everybody did their civic duty and voted. And with this being a presidential election year, the next 3 months until November will well and truly be the silly season, won't it? Political and candidate ads will be seen and heard everywhere. Vote for me and I'll do this and that, and blah, 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 ad nauseum. News and political pundits will dissect every word and action and then dissect it again and again and again. Experts will weigh in on what will happen if this candidate comes into power or if this party comes into power. All of this brings to mind that old wisdom, or some people would say that old joke, about how do you know when a politician is lying?
His lips are moving?
Their lips are moving, you got it. But all of this silly season stuff, all this power stuff, got me thinking about this notion of power. So we elect people and we give them power and authority over us. We hire into companies and give management power and authority over us. We enter relationships, marriages, and wrestle with who will have the power, although most husbands know who really has the power, right? And even in our churches, we give power to elected councils. We bestow power and authority, if you will, upon pastors and bishops. And in a particularly sort of American way, we imagine we even have power and authority over our own lives, don't we? That we are self-made, beholden to no one or nothing, self-made masters of our own destinies. And with all this power and authority in so many hands, you would imagine our world would be a better place than it really is, right? That our lives would be happier and more fulfilled than they are. So we all know that this is not the case. Why? Why? If humans have all this power, why do we fail so often to create a just world? A world filled with love and grace and joy and plenty for all? Are we forgetting something or someone? Consider the story of the little boy who's sitting in his sandbox. He's digging away in it, and he comes upon a pretty large rock. He wants that rock out of his sandbox. So he's digging around it, and he's pushing it, and he's trying to pick it up, and he's leaning back, and he's pushing it with his feet and everything, and he can't budge that rock. And he tries and uses everything he knows how to do, and he can't move that rock. So he starts crying. His father had been watching the child from an upstairs window. The father comes down and he says to the child, "Why didn't you use all your power to move that rock?" And the child says, I did. I pushed and I pulled and I kicked and I dug. I used all my power and I couldn't budge it. And the father looks at the child lovingly and says, "You didn't call on me for help. You had that power that you didn't call upon." And I think what this story illustrates really nicely is that the someone or something that gets forgotten so often in mankind's preoccupation with his own power and authority is God. We try to rely on and trust our own power, our own abilities, and we leave God out. We put our faith in ourselves and our own creations over the unmeasurable power of our Creator God, whose very breath brought life into us. All of our readings today expressed in wonderful detail and awe the power of our God. In Matthew's reading, we see the power and majesty of God's power at work as Jesus calms the raging elements of wind and seas. And isn't that raging storm, that raging sea, a kind of interesting metaphor for the kind of raging sea of crumminess that our world seems to be going through? The raging sea of despair that a lot of our brothers and sisters are suffering through. Storms characterized by hatred, injustice, poverty, and hunger, by worship of cultural idols rather than God. Matthew tells us that we are to trust Jesus, rely on his power, have faith in his power, and his power will calm all the storms of this world. Not our power, but his. In the reading from Job, we are asked straight off, do you have any idea how powerful God is? Question mark, exclamation point, right? And the reading from Job goes on to describe that power, how he makes the rain, the clouds, and lightning and thunder. And then in Psalm 18, David waxes lovingly about the strength of God and his power. He calls God his strength. He says God is his rock, his fortress, his deliverer, his shield, and his salvation. And the psalmist reminds us not only of that strength and power, but the importance of calling on God, of calling on that power. He says, I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. So not only is God all-powerful, but we are to rely on that power by calling on it. Just like the little boy didn't use all his power when he didn't call on his father. And that we can have faith. We can trust that God will hear and respond. So my brothers and sisters, let's stop relying on our own power and authority and strength to calm the storms that beset us on all sides. Let's abdicate our own perceived authority and call on the Mighty One. Let's show our faith by calling on God to use his power to do what we cannot do, what we fail to do with all our perceived power. The God whose greatest power might actually be his boundless love for us, a power that caused him to send his only begotten Son to die for us, thereby redeeming us, a redemption that, again, all of our power could not have made happen. And have faith that the God whose very breath is in our lungs is always ready to act on our behalf. When you are trying to move a big stone in your sandbox of life and you can't move it, and you've used all your power and you can't move that rock of troubles in your life, call upon your Father. Amen.
Amen.
And now, right?
Yeah.
Now, we have another brief interlude for a song. This one, of course, is brought to you as always by, he switched it up. It's Nestle's Pure Life Water. Usually it's Kroger, so shameless plug for Nestle's. See you in a minute.
We'll be right back.